So some of the Season 5 changes for the Druid have ended up being incredibly strong, and mixing these changes with one of the uniques I wanted to also go over in this video has made one of the Druid ultimates one of the strongest abilities in the game, at least for leveling up and getting into World Tier 4, as I have not tried this out at level 100, but I am currently at level 85, and this still works incredibly strong even against enemies 20 or 30 levels above me. Now, all of this information is pertaining to the Cataclysm ultimate, which you probably haven't used a lot if you played a Druid because it just hasn't been really strong. And how this ultimate works is you just pop it and it'll randomly lightning strike everywhere and constantly spawn a random amount of tornadoes. Now, the big changes to this ultimate that makes all of this actually work are just some changes to how it functions at a baseline. The first one being that the lightning strikes rate is now doubled. So all of these random lightning strikes that Cataclysm causes are now doubled in the rate that they spawn. So just a lot more lightning strikes and they just spawn much more quickly. But the second change is where this really gets crazy. The second change is now more consistently hits enemies with its lightning strikes. So previous to this, the Cataclysm lightning strikes basically just went wherever they wanted. They wouldn't really track enemies. It was basically just like you caused a storm above you and it would lightning strike wherever. If it hits something, it hits something. Now they actually track pretty heavily. In fact, they track so consistently that if you pop Cataclysm and there's no enemies on your screen, and let's say you're running through a dungeon, when you get close enough to enemies, Cataclysm will start hitting enemies off screen just because it tracks so heavily now. So now, just at a base, the lightning strikes from Cataclysm having really good tracking and the rate at which they spawn being doubled makes Cataclysm just pretty good, especially for leveling at a base. But once you add in some other effects, this ultimate can legitimately just start carrying you and solo killing bosses even in World Tier 4. Because just taking Cataclysm at a base with these new changes and going up against a boss, so against one target, you'll see where this ultimate becomes kind of crazy on bosses. Because before, as we went over, these lightning strikes would just randomly strike everywhere, and that would be the same thing on a boss. It would just randomly strike around if they hit it. But now that lightning strikes track, if you use Cataclysm against one enemy, every single lightning strike tracks and hits that one enemy now. And since their rate is doubled, if you go against a boss, it's just machine gunning lightning strikes all hitting the boss. And it does a pretty decent amount of damage at base, and if you start to add in other effects, Cataclysm can just legitimately solo bosses because the base of it is so good. And one of the big reasons I want to do this video is because when you mix these massive buffs to Cataclysm with one of the new unique items for the Druid, it just becomes godly. Now, this new unique is called Mnik Ring, and the special of this is while your Cataclysm is active, you have unlimited spirit, which is crazy, but you also deal up to 100% increased multiplicative damage for the entirety of Cataclysm. And that's all of your damage. So Cataclysm damage, any other ability damage, any damage you deal is now just getting this massive multiplier. And I actually got one of these rings at level 30, and I'm still using it at level 85 in World Tier 4. And this ring isn't sacred or ancestral. It's just some level 30 unique that's so incredibly strong that it's still worth using, which is actually a really good spot for a unique to be in. So as we went over, Cataclysm's really good, can basically solo bosses. Now that Cataclysm is just doing massively increased damage. If you're using a build that actually uses spirit, you're now going to have unlimited spirit for the entirety of Cataclysm, and mixing that with some other things will just massively buff all of this. So already on this ring, one of the affixes just gives you increased movement speed while Cataclysm is active, really good for any speed farming. And another one of the affixes gives you ranks to Endless Tempest. And this is one of the first spots that makes this even stronger. Endless Tempest is one of the passives for the Druid that increases the duration of Hurricane and Cataclysm by some percent. That's also a multiplicative increase. And with this ring that at base gives you +1 ranks, then you put 3 ranks into Endless Tempest, your Cataclysm duration is now multiplied by 20%. So your Cataclysm is just going to last a lot longer, which is obviously going to be very good when you have unlimited spirit and massively increased damage. Then your upgrades for a Cataclysm being Prime Cataclysm that increases its duration by 4 seconds. is, again, really good. And then Supreme Cataclysm that makes all of your lightning strikes from Cataclysm make enemies vulnerable for 6 seconds. So now you don't have to worry about vulnerable anywhere else in your build, and your Cataclysm lasts a ridiculous amount of time. And if you can get this ring, anytime you use Cataclysm, all of your damage is massively multiplied. And as a side note, I did get this ring from the new reputation track for Season 5. I know at least one of the low reputation box rewards does give you a guaranteed unique item, but I'm not sure if that's a random unique item or if it always gives you the same one. So you may be able to get this ring from the early reputation track, but I'm not 100% certain on that. Now, as mentioned, I'm only level 85, even though I am facing enemies 100 or above level 100 most of the time. I'm not max level yet doing the highest tier of content, so I'm not sure how well Cataclysm's damage is going to scale into the end game, but if you can get this ring, no matter if Cataclysm itself scales really heavily, the damage you deal is going to, just because of the massive multiplicative damage increase this ring will give you. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot of builds using this ring, using Cataclysm, and trying to have 100% uptime on Cataclysm in a ton of different builds, just because this mix seems to be absolutely ridiculous. And whether or not Cataclysm's damage is crazy once you get to 100 and get into the hardest content, it is crazy for leveling up. Even into World Tier 4, Cataclysm's damage can absolutely carry you and even solo bosses itself. So I would definitely recommend giving Cataclysm a try, whether or not you have this ring. If you've gotten this ring, definitely give that a try as well, because the damage is kind of absurd. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.
I need more time. I'm not ready yet. I must wait a moment.